Stuffing, by and large, is evil. It adds mass, which increases the cooking time, and that leads to dry meat. It's also a haven for bacteria like Salmonella and its good buddy Campylobacter, neither of which make very good side dishes. But this is not to say that we have to leave that cavity vacant. We don't. It's a great place to introduce flavors through the use of aromatics, herbs, and things like that. I like to start with, well, rosemary, just a big chunk of rosemary, maybe two, right into the cavity, along with sage, which is pretty traditional Thanksgiving flavor. I just use a whole stalk, wad it up right in there. But I've also got kind of a secret weapon, which is I've got half of an onion and a red apple that I've microwaved on high for about 5 minutes in some water. Cooking it ahead will open up the flavors and make it easier for the turkey to take it in. And I'm going to add to that a cinnamon stick for that extra special Thanksgiving something. I'll let that steep for a minute. Now, as for the gobbler itself, once you've washed off the brine and let it drain and patted it dry, there's not that much you've got to do. We do have to deal with these wings. They'll just wag around inside the oven and get burned. So just take them and tuck them up under themselves like that. It doesn't take much force, and you won't need any string. There. As for the back of the bird, almost every turkey on the market these days has some kind of doohickey that holds the legs together. This one's wire, but even if it's plastic, leave it on. It's oven safe, don't worry. If you have a turkey with unleashed legs, just strap the ends together with a little piece of butcher's twine and leave it alone. Now, during the Thanksgiving day, this is just about the time when loving family and friends start swamping in with all their side dishes and desserts that they've brought. And since you've got raw food out, it would be a really easy way to have a close encounter of the bacterial kind. Now, if I had a loving family and a bunch of friends, if they weren't off watching Kojak while I did all the work, I might make sure there was an out-of-the-way spot that they could use as kind of a food holding area. They could just keep things out of the way of the raw food. I might even make sure there was a nice cooler here with ice in it for all their chilled things, all their congealed salads and their pies. That is, if I had a nice, loving bunch of family and friends. I might also do this. I'd make sure that the turkey went straight from the sink to its cooking apparatus. The fewer surfaces the turkey moves around to, the less chance there is of cross-contamination. Now you notice that I've just got a shallow pan here and a flat rack. I like flat racks because I think it promotes more browning on the bird. The popular V-racks these days kind of squish all the meat together and you get very pale crease lines. So the last step is the insertion of the aromatics. Don't worry about neatness, it doesn't count on this one. Just get everything in there. It'll bring a lot of flavor to the party. And now, since we've gotten so close to the final oven countdown, it's time for some words of wisdom from the big chair and Uncle Morty on thermometers. This should be good.
The only thermometer you need is already in the bird. You just cook that brown baby until the popper pops. Well, I gotta go. Barney Miller's on.
Be afraid. Be very afraid. Not of Abe Vigoda necessarily, but of this. Sure, looks like a perfectly innocent little white tube, but inside there's a coiled spring held in place by an epoxy that's made to melt at a specific temperature, about 180 degrees. And when it reaches that point, the spring is released, and up comes this little shaft, which supposedly tells you your turkey is done. Now, by the time all this happens, the manufacturers figure that the dark meat will be perfect, and it will. The problem is that the white meat will be a desert. So, our advice, if your turkey's got it, ignore it. But don't take it out prior to cooking, or you'll find you've just got a gaping hole that all the juice will run out of. So we're left in a quandary. How do you really know when your bird is done? Well, you sure can't trust the charts on the package that your turkey came in. They've got about as much to do with cooking as Charlie's Angels did serious detective work. The answer lies in our little probed friend. But you do have to be careful. You want to make sure that the probe goes into the deepest part of the white meat. I like to go in from the side, but make sure that you don't run into either the keel bone or the ribs. Either of those would give you a false reading.